This conference will now be recorded.
All right, we have the recording started. So with that, we'll go ahead and call to order the meeting of the December Citizens Participation Committee meeting. So I'll go ahead and start with the roll call. And if I miss you, please let me know. So it looks like we have Lynn Nelson joining us. See her nodding. Andrew Smith.
Present.
Steve Clevenger.
Present.
Nick Harvey. Not quite sure if Nick's here or not. So we'll move on to Gene Croshan.
Present.
And Jim Beatty.
I'm present. I'm hearing music in the background. Is that my computer?
I would imagine so, because I'm not hearing any music. So yeah, might be. Okay, so with that, the first item of business would be approving the meeting minutes from the September meeting. So I would entertain a motion to approve those.
Motion.
All right, we have a motion from Andrew, thank you. And if we could get a second.
I'll second.
And a second from Steve, thank you, Steve. We'll go ahead and take a roll call vote on that. So Lynn?
Yes.
Okay. Andrew?
Yay. Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Nick? Okay, not sure if Nick's on still or not. He said he might have to leave. Gene?
Yes.
And Jim? Nick,
Yeah.
the question was about approving the minutes from the last meeting. Okay, so I see Nick's typing there, and he does approve. Okay, thank you, Nick. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Doug Pote, our Senior Transportation Planner, and he's going to talk to you about the annual listing of projects. So go ahead and take it away, Doug.
Great, thank you, Tim. This evening, I get to tell you about a document that we produce annually, and we have been doing this since 2006, so this is the 17th document, and it's called the Annual Listing of Projects. Something rather interesting about this is that this is not required by us to do this. This is not required by NDOT to do this. This is not required by our local Federal Highway Administration office to do this. This is actually required within the federal transportation legislation. So it's a very important document that all metropolitan planning organizations must produce, and they must do it annually. And for this document, the fiscal year that we follow is the state fiscal year, because that's generally when we receive federal funding. We get a new allocation every July 1st. So this is for fiscal year 2023, which began July 1st of 2022 and ended this past June 30th. And as a requirement from the federal legislation, this has to be done no later than September 30th. So we have a very, very short or small timeline in order to get this document done after the beginning of the new fiscal year. Fortunately, what we do is we actually start sometime in August and September and start collecting the data then. So over the year, it doesn't take us that long to produce this report. As I mentioned, this report has been done since the 2006 report, and I have to say, and I like to do a little bragging, that with all of the other MPO annual listings of projects, our document that we produce is probably the most detailed report that is done. I would say the one in South Bend is close, but ours is the best. The reason why we do this and the reason why Congress wants us to put this document together is because they want us to show you or tell you where your federal gas tax dollars are going, specifically to which projects. And that not only includes road projects, but also transit projects. So it's a great public tool so you can see what is going on roadway wise and transit wise within the MPO area or Tippecanoe County. As I mentioned, this is a document just filled with a lot of information. Not only do we include projects that are funded strictly with federal gas tax funds, but we also include projects that are funded solely with state funds and solely with local funds. So we get to it in a little bit and look at NDOT projects. You'll see a short list, but when we get into the local project list, because the cities, both West Lafayette and Lafayette, take very good notes for their Board of Public Works, and the county commissioners take very good notes. We go through every one of those and pull out any information related to projects, and that information is included in here. So, I mean, it includes everything pretty much that you want to know about what's happened within the past state fiscal year regarding road project wise. So I mentioned we do have it broken down into both state projects and local projects. So Tim, if you could go to page 3. At the beginning of the document, we have several tables. The first table, table 1, includes projects just from the Indiana Department of Transportation. And as you can see here, we have the project broken down by the phase, whether it be the initial first phase of the project, preliminary engineering, the second phase, actual right-of-way, whether they're actually working towards purchasing right-of-way or actually purchasing right-of-way. And then for construction, there's 2 phases, construction engineering and then also construction. And construction is where we get into the really large numbers in terms of both local funds, state funds, federal funds, and whatnot. And as you can see in what's shown on the page, and this is actually, if you want to look on page 4, if you look through the document, there are a lot of state projects that occurred or was let for construction within fiscal year 2023. Now, as you see all of this, there are some projects that are small and there are some projects that are super large. Most of these projects are maintenance projects, so that's the reason why they are fairly small. If you consider, $500,000 small, but one project I would like to point out here, US 231, that's right in the middle of the page, basically from 4.19 miles north of I-74. Thank you, Tim, for pointing that out, to 2.3 miles north of State Road 28. This is an auxiliary lanes passing project. And actually, if you drive this section of 231 right now, portions of it are actually under construction. As you can see, this project, the construction cost, the bids were $14.65 million, and it was paid for with 100% federal funds. This is felt to be a safety project because of all the passing issues with vehicles. Right below that, State Road 43, believe it or not, there's a bridge replacement project. And it's actually, the cost of that is for $1.8 million. Going on to the next page, if you could please do that, Tim. And this shows the remaining state projects. We have some that are kind of interesting. We have one that says district-wide, various locations. And the district-wide, that means it's a project that occurs over the entire district. Thank you for pointing that out. And this is within the Crawfordsville district. This is basically installing additional ITS traveler information. So we will be getting a number, if you are traveling on I-65, for example, I believe just north of McCarty Lane, there's a information board. We are going to get a few more of those, specifically just south of State Road 43, both north and southbound directions, and on the very south end of the county in the southbound direction, if I remember correctly. And this project is over $4 million to install these additional signs. And then at various locations, those could be either throughout the district. as mentioned here, or actually throughout the state. And then we also have one other project, railroad engineering. This is if a project involves something that's close to or related to railroads, um, NDOT and also the local government agencies must involve the railroad, and they have to pay for any railroad flagging or anything to help protect railroads so that if a project, if something is occurring over it, basically to protect the trains that might pass under. So it doesn't happen very often, but it does once in a while. So as you can see, overall, within Tippecanoe County, the state of Indiana spent $32 million on road projects, and a good majority of that, $29.3 million, was in federal funds, basically 92% of the construction projects. So that's quite a bit of money that was actually spent here in the county. Going on, the next section, we actually look at local projects, and basically the table that we have is very similar. It breaks the projects down into the different phases. And oh my, there are just so many more projects going on locally. I mean, a lot. And hopefully after the meeting sometime you'll be able to go through the document and look at all of them. But I'm just going to briefly go through these, try to highlight a couple of them. Basically, the first one there, you see preliminary engineering, Veterans Memorial Parkway. Yes, the city is actually moving forward and widening another section of Veterans Memorial. And this would be basically from US 52 to just south of the state road, basically where the railroad bridge ends. And this will be converting it to 4 travel lanes, and then looking at putting a trail in and a traffic signal there at 460 East. And the total cost is $200,000. And this is just preliminary engineering, coming up with basically the blueprints on how to build the additional improvements. Going down a bit further, let's go actually to page 15, Tim. Part of there we go, right there. Both cities have really good programs in focusing on sidewalks, curbs, and ramps, especially converting ramps that are not ADA accessible. And this project you see addresses Caisson and 22nd Streets. And yeah, it's just a very small area, but they are going to be spending construction-wise nearly $84,000 to improve the sidewalks, curbs, and the ramps in this area. So, I mean, we get down to small projects of that sort. If you look in throughout the table, you will notice over the past 4, 5, 6 years, the city of Lafayette has been upgrading the sidewalks in downtown Lafayette to make them more friendly to pedestrians, beautifying them. There's all kinds of different phases. They're also listed in here. Some big projects that I'd like to point out. If you can go to page 18, Tim. There we go. This project I want to highlight is what we call the McCutcheon Pedestrian Safety or PED Safety Project. And this is actually construction. And this is almost $1.3 million. And construction is occurring right now. So if you go out to Old 231 right by McCutcheon High School or County Road 500 South by Mayflower, you will see these improvements being installed. Basically, when we looked at this years ago, there were crashes occurring because students were crossing, especially Old 231. And since it was dark, there was only a very few lights. There were definitely issues with safety for the school kids crossing. So we actually are using safety funds for this project and installing sidewalks, trails, and hawk signals. So that the hawk signal is basically, we have two of them in the area that you may be familiar with, one on Concord Road, which was the first one, and another one's on Sagamore Parkway near McCarty Lane. These are basically signals that have 3 red lights, and eventually when you push it, they will flash and then they go solid. Everybody stops and the pedestrians can cross safely. So this is a very important safety project. And I'd also like to point out that typically the Indiana Department of Transportation does not allow using safety funds for sidewalk or trail improvements. This is the first project in the state by a local community to use safety funds for these improvements. So pretty proud of that. So it's great that this project is going forward. On the next page, page 19, we have a couple projects I'd like to point out. You may have recently seen, or last year especially, the improvements in West Lafayette on Lindbergh Road between Northwestern Avenue to Salisbury Street. The improvements on that, we're funded specifically with only local funds. And that cost to construct it was over $3.2 million. Right below that is another locally funded project. And that is what you see right now happening or occurring on US 52 at County Roads 450 South and 500 South. Basically, they're realigning both roads and bringing it to one intersection. And the cost, oh, I mean, it seems unbelievable. That is over $9.3 million just for the cost of that. Going to the next one, next page, please. Another biggie or big ticket project is that second one, Yeager Road. And I believe the county just had the ribbon cutting here within the past few days, if I remember correctly. But anyway, this project, of course, if you're familiar with what Yeager Road, north of where the city boundary is, used to be gravel, and it was or had several 90-degree sharp curves. Well, this project removes all that. The road is now pavement, and then we also have a trail along the road. So the cost to construct this is over $8.7 million. Quite a large project. I mean, a substantially large project. So if you look through there, you'll see a lot of other ones, some smaller ones. And one other point here, yes, you do see on the streetscape phase 4 a negative number. That is where basically when the project is in construction, sometimes they don't need all of the material that the project calls for, and or all of the manpower to do a certain task. Well, if that occurs, they do get a credit. So that's what you see the negative value. So that overall does reduce the project cost. It does happen, not very frequently, but it does happen. So if you go down to page 22, the very bottom. Okay, looking at this, look at the numbers at the bottom. The overall total for all the local projects, a whopping $37.9 million. Basically, the cities of Lafayette, West Lafayette, and Tippecanoe County spent in road improvements in the one fiscal year. Of that, $10.28 million were federal funds. So as you can see, the local government agencies are spending a lot of our tax money on all of these improvements. And of course, if you have time afterwards, please look through the individual ones. You'll find a lot of, stuff interestingly going on. Looking further, we do have some information regarding transit. Basically, the federal transit system does give City Bus money to operate the system. And this is just a summary of what the funds used for: additional capital projects, bus replacements, fuel cell electric buses, CNG buses, and so forth. So, it's not quite in depth as what you would see on the roadside, but yet it still shows information as to what city bus is spending their federal funds on. One thing that is required and has been required since day one in putting these documents together, if you could go to page 30, please, Tim, is that we need to look at all of the projects and then report of those projects, which of them have pedestrian and bicycle facilities or amenities included in it. And this basically goes through and does a short review of all of that. Unfortunately, NDOT does not have a good track record, mostly because a lot of these are maintenance projects, but they do at times include some type of provisions. For example, the one listed here, US 52 and Brady and Creasy Lane intersection. At this intersection, what they did was they put in additional sidewalk connections, and they did put ADA ramps in. So they did make some amenities. But on the local side, if it's not a maintenance project, generally pretty much all of the local projects include some type of amenity for pedestrians or bicyclists. And then after that, you see down there in the next section, basically that in the next page gives an overview of how our federal tax monies come back to us and then how they are allocated and spent. So just a general overview of that. Now the next section, yes, that's a lot of work to put all that together, but the next section actually takes a significant amount of time, and I'm just going to cover one of these. I mean, it's page after page after page, but for all the projects that are listed in the annual listing, each project gets this amount of detail information. So at the top, you have the project information, basically here, this one's the State Road 43 and where the location is. It also tells what type of project is, bridge replacement. And then we also list the phase. This one shows construction. If it does have preliminary engineering or right-of-way, we also include this. We also include the contact agency and then the specific information. For example, construction. This had construction engineering, what the total cost was, what the federal funds were, and then also the construction total cost, what the federal funding amount was, the actual letting date of the project, when the estimated completion date was. Because yes, it's great that a project was let, but what's the next question? When is it going to get done? So that's the information we include here. We also include the contractor who is going to actually be building it. And then we do a comparison. For example, this project did have in the Transportation Improvement Program, which is another document that shows where our federal funds are allocated. This compares to how much federal funds were actually shown in that document, and then how much was spent. Did they spend more? Did they spend less, or about the same? And then we have specific project information, the ID number, contract, and if there were any pedestrian or bicycle accommodations included. Another thing that we do that takes an awful lot of time to collect data-wise is put this timeline. Some projects don't take that long to construct, but some do. This project actually started in the summer of 2018. We also include an aerial photo to show where the project is located. And then on the following page, something additionally neat is we actually then go to each project site and take pictures. Here we have a picture, before construction, of course, showing what it looks like now. So this is what you'd see if you drive the road. So I just wanted to briefly touch on this one thing. But again, we do this for every project. So if you have a specific question on a project, whether it be a state project or a local project, you can go to that project page and see all of that. The next section we have is one that we added several years back, and that is way back towards the end of the document. I'm trying to get to that page here real quick. Tell Tim. It's page 167. So even though this is not a requirement, this is something we felt that was necessary to kind of give closure, because yes, the information we include in this document does basically state when it happens, but what about when it's completed? So this short chapter here looks back, and we keep track of when these projects are completed, and for each project we have one of these pages. And if you could go to page 168, this is the NDOT. This is of course the NDOT one. This project occurred on State Road 38, and then you give the location. Specifically, this is on the east end of the town of Dayton. We give general information on, yes, it was an NDOT project, the state information, the construction total cost. We show the letting date of the project. We also show the estimated completion date, and then actually the when it was completed. Sometimes we get the information for when it was open to traffic. Sometimes we get the information to when the project was actually completed, and it varies depending on how when we can get the information and by who. And then we also show the contractor. Another thing we have or try to include is kind of give you here a before and after. So you see basically what the road looked like before construction, and then what it looked like afterwards. And we do this for both state and local projects. So the only thing that remains in the document is at the very end, NDOT gives us supposedly the correct federal funding information as to how much was obligated within Tippecanoe County. Yeah, it's kind of interesting because when we start looking at this, it does not include everything. It's very, I mean, it's not a very good table. It starts on 200. We do include it in here because this was given to us by NDOT. So we just basically want to show this page as well as the following several. This is basically what the vast number of other MPOs around the state show. This is it. Again, comparing to what you see here as to what I've quickly presented, you can see the vast difference because we want to let everyone know where their money, their tax money, whether it be local tax money or federal gas tax money, goes in terms of road and transit improvements. So, we are planning to continue this detailed format so that this is just basically wanting to let everyone know what's going on. So in a nutshell, that's the document. We were successful in getting it posted before the September 30th deadline we have for all 17 reports. And if you want to look back at older ones, they are all available on our website. So with that, are there any questions or comments I can answer?
This is Jane. In the table 1 and early tables there, the costs and the federal funds, is that total for the project or is that actually this fiscal year?
That is the total cost of that phase within that fiscal year. There are times, as you kind of alluded to, that preliminary engineering may occur over 2 or 3 years. We only include the amount that is spent or obligated within that fiscal year. And that's likewise with the federal funds.
We do have other tools for tracking the total costs of the project. I don't know if you want to talk about that, Doug.
Oh, man. Yeah, sure. I'll be more than glad to. Basically, we really uh, do a very serious and pay close attention to our local federal funds. Every month, the Indiana Department of Transportation sends us an obligation report, and we actually take that information and put it into our own report that is, again, considerably more detailed. And we share that with the Technical Transportation Committee and the Policy Board. We do this pretty much every month. Now, at the beginning of the fiscal year, we really don't put these reports out, but beginning last month and this month, we basically put them out every month. And the reason why is that NDOT, one of their criteria is that all of our local gas tax funds that we receive for the fiscal year must be obligated, and obligated not before the end of the fiscal year, June 30th, but basically needs to be obligated by early April. So we bring this information to the attention of the two boards to make sure that the projects are moving forward and that they have specific deadlines and timelines in which a project will be obligated for construction, or the funds will be obligated for construction, or we do another type of request for the other phases. So we track the federal funds locally very closely. And then especially come February, March, we make sure that everyone is aware on these two boards where we stand. Any other questions or comments?
Where can I find that report online so that I can look through the whole thing?
Okay, so first you need to go to, you can either go to the Tippecanoe County webpage, or if you just Google Area Plan Commission, generally that will bring you to the Area Plan Commission website. And then on the left side, you have options. Oh, well, there you go. Aria actually posted the link. So in transportation, we have a number of different subsections, and one of them is the annual listing, the third one down. And as you can see there, that's just shown on the snippet there, of course, the most recent one, the 2023. And then if you can see all of the older ones, and if you scroll down, you can see all of them. So that's where you'd find them. Any, sure. Any other questions or comments? Hey, Tim, do you want me to go ahead and continue onward with my next bit of trivia?
Yes, I think so, Doug. It looks like I think we've given everyone on Facebook and YouTube a fair chance, so we can switch over to the traffic counts.
Okay. So this is just a bit of interesting information that we have been tracking fairly regular over some time, in that if you remember back, if you listen to the news reports that, yes, you hear, oh, traffic is very heavy Thanksgiving, right before Thanksgiving, and then especially right afterwards when people come back. So fortunately, the Indiana Department of Transportation has traffic counters that sit out and collect traffic count information all the time, every day of the year, all the time. They just keep collecting traffic count information. And within Tippecanoe County, we are fortunate to have 3 counters. The unfortunate news is that because of the I-65 widening projects, not only the one that's currently going on, but the previous one, the specific count location has been not recording traffic counts because of the construction. We also have a counter on US 231 just south of County Road 800 South. That counter was turned off due to the construction that's occurring right now. And the third count is on US 52. That's the bottom part you see right there. And that count location is just west of Paramount Drive. But of course, we all want to know what's happening on the interstate. So the closest traffic count, permanent station traffic counter, is located just north of Tippecanoe County, and it's just south of State Road 18. So this gives us a good idea of the amount of traffic just north of State Road 43. So the first table and graph I have there are counts on I-65 at that location. And I've included the counts going back to 2017 to 2023 present. And if you look at the highlighted counts on Wednesday, you know, normally these counts are somewhere in the upper 30s, low 50s. You will see that, with the exception of 2020, of course, that these counts on Wednesday before Thanksgiving are all in the 60,000 range. So higher or more traffic than normal. Now, again, they also say that, yeah, over the weekend there's more traffic because everybody wants to get back home, getting ready for work. Again, highlighted in gray on Sunday, you can see the counts, 60,000, and in 2021, that crossed the 70,000 line. So the graph really shows this, that you can really see those 2 days, the peaks, that there is a substantial increase in traffic on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving and then on Sunday afterwards. So just kind of a bit of information. We don't look at any other traffic counts, especially closer to Indianapolis. So I cannot tell you if it's substantially even more. That's something we may look at in the future, but at least in our area, we can definitely say that on I-65, there are more cars traveling on Wednesday before Thanksgiving and on Sunday afterwards. So looking on 52, does this actually occur on 52? And if you look at the traffic count data, the answer is actually no. You see, yeah, there is a dip in traffic, and you can see that that dip usually occurs on Thanksgiving Day. But if you look on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, they look about normal. A couple exceptions. And then if you look on the Sunday, they look about normal. Maybe a couple dips, but otherwise, you do not see this large peak as you do on the interstate. So I guess it's okay to travel, on these days afterwards to go, especially on Black Friday to go shopping. But again, just a bit of trivia information that we collect, that we just like to share with all of you. Any comments or questions?
All right.
Doug,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
this is Steve. The 1 in 52 is actually not on 52 anymore. It's actually on special 52, right?
You are correct. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I would think too that it'd probably be less. I mean, that you wouldn't see the increases there because you've got a lot of Purdue students that are gone too. It'd be interesting to see the counts on
Mhm.
52 south of town rather than
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the north side of town. 'Cause most people
Yeah.
are probably going to head south rather than north.
That is correct, but unfortunately, we do not have a permanent traffic counter available to do
I
that
know.
comparison.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
And it looks like Aria did mention that we still don't have any Facebook or YouTube questions. So I'll give one more chance for people to ask Doug any further questions about this interesting traffic count data he presented. All right, so thank you, Doug. And with that, we're going to go ahead to our next agenda item. So for those of you that were able to attend last time, I gave kind of an overview of the Safe Streets for All program. We had some slides. We kind of talked about what that was in detail. So if you're really interested in getting some more detail about this, feel free to watch the recording from last meeting, which we do have up on our YouTube channel. But just to kind of quickly summarize, so what I'm showing right now is something that just went live on our website today, and it gives kind of just a quick overview, mentioning the Safe Streets and Road for All program is a grant funding program. It was put in place with the most recent federal transportation bill. And one of the big components that we have with this is what's called the high entry network, which Aria from our office has been very hard at work putting together. So if we go ahead and click on that here, so we see some of what we get. So what you're looking at here is this is essentially some of the corridors where you will see more of the injuries and more serious crashes. So you will notice that a lot of these are on the roads in Lafayette. We do have some going into West Lafayette, and some of these are, along, of course, Sagamore Parkway here. You got 18th Street, etc. So not to get too much into this, but we have been doing some work on this, so we wanted to kind of just present some information for you to see. You can look through this further on your own time if you really want to dig into it. But then the other thing that's kind of exciting that's progressing about this that is a bit of a work in progress is that we are putting together a public participation plan for this. And we've been working with a consultant to put that together. We just had a meeting the other day about it. I guess it was yesterday, actually, yeah, about that. And so that's progressing pretty well. We're going to have a very cool interactive tool where people can go to a map and put basically like a pinned location with some comments where they can highlight where some of the issues are that perhaps pedestrians, bicyclists, or people with mobility devices might be experiencing. They can highlight areas where they believe there are crash problems or where they've experienced a near crash. So we're going to be rolling that out in the next couple months. It will be posted on this page, and we will be sending out some notifications asking for requests for people to kind of fill out that survey and put together any comments they might have on that map. So that's something that I don't have more information about yet, but it is coming, and we will be sending some stuff out to the email list to reach out to all of you. So we would love it if you would give us your feedback on that, and if you know anyone else who would be interested in letting us know. The more comments we can gather on this, the better. We're also going to be pushing some of that out through our social media networks, and we have a few partner agencies we're going to be working with here locally to help promote it as well. So that's kind of the next big thing that's happening with this project. Kind of trying to go through this a little bit quickly. I didn't want to spend too much time going over something we've already kind of covered last time, but I did want to open up the floor for any questions about this, whether it be about the high entry network or the upcoming public participation opportunity that we have. So the floor is open.
This is James. What kind of public participation are you talking about? Meetings, online, social media? You may have said some of that.
Yes. So it would primarily be kind of an online sort of, I don't know if survey is exactly the right word, but something you can kind of fill out where you put comments in. So we will also be going to some events, some public events, and we will have someone there essentially with a tablet, basically, where people can talk to someone and fill that out in person. So that we hope should be able to help with getting some people who may not have access to computers, or maybe just don't necessarily know to look about this, or they didn't hear about the social media outreach and the other postings we had. So we're trying to find ways to make sure that we get a good cross section of people. But it will all be kind of stored in an online database, which will then be converted to something that will go into a final plan.
That sounds good. If you held just a meeting on it, nobody will show up. So sounds like you're finding ways to get to the people.
Yeah, we sure hope we will. Yeah, we're hoping that we can get a good response rate on this. And I have kind of had a chance to look at the tool, and I thought it was fairly user friendly. So I'm hoping that means that people will be able to give us some good feedback, and that it won't be too difficult for anyone to use. So that's what our hope is with this. Any other questions about this? All right, so I'm just going to give one more minute for any final comments to come in on the stream. We haven't had any come in yet. So while we do that, I will go ahead and mention that this is, of course, our last meeting for this year. We do have 3 meetings scheduled for 2024, and the first of those will be on March 13th. So again, that's the second Wednesday of March. It will, of course, be virtual, just as this one is. So that's going to be our first one next year. And I don't think we have any comments on Facebook or YouTube. So with that, I will ask for any final questions, comments, or suggestions.
Hey, Tim, this is Jane.
Oh,
You're
sure.
doing 3 meetings next year?
4 meetings.
Okay.
Yes, as Aria mentions in the chat there, the next one is March 13th, but the others, which would be June 12th, September 11th, and December 11th, are also all listed on the agenda that we sent out today. And we will, of course, continue to send out reminders closer to those dates so that they can stay on everybody's calendar. So I'll take one final call for any questions, comments, or suggestions. And if we don't hear any, we can go ahead and move on to adjournment. All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming tonight. I hope that you were able to get some interesting information from what Doug and I presented, and we look forward to seeing you in March. And so unless there are any objections, we will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Okay, hearing no objections, I think it's safe to adjourn. Thank you, everybody, and have a great holiday season.
Thank you.